First of all, I'd like to thank all you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule and come out and listen to our presentation. We at BSN, we really think it's part of our company, our philosophy, to come and share all the things that we know and we've accomplished. So we go around the country doing clinics such as this and just trying to give to our coaches and help them just spend more time with the kids, because we know it's so important. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a former world-class sprinter. I went to University of Wisconsin. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I played football in high school, basketball, and track and field. I was one of the top football players in the state of Wisconsin. This is back in 1983, so it's kind of a long time ago. But also, I was the second fastest sprinter in the entire nation. I ran 20.7 in high school out of Milwaukee, which was unheard of. I was the first kid to ever run under 22 seconds in Wisconsin and under 21 seconds. And over the years, I've developed a program that I feel the things that I did myself, but also to help these kids get better. But again, all that stuff is on a video where you can see some of the things I accomplished, and also on that video you've seen two, could you go back 1 second, I'm sorry? You see these 2 rings. I was at the University of Wisconsin, and I was a track coach, and I started helping the football program. We were 4-6. This is when Barry Alvarez, you football guys, that when he first came to Wisconsin, it was 1-10. They were 4-6. They asked me to help their team with their team speed. We went 10-1-1 and won the Rose Bowl. And I was in the NBA for over 20 years. Again, with the Vancouver Memphis Grizzlies, Dallas Mavericks, and the Milwaukee Bucks. And I was with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. We won the championship. So that's what the 2 rings represent. But I train youth sports from 8-year-old to Hall of Famers. And I kind of use a lot of the same philosophy and the same parts of this program that I'm sharing with you today. And I really think it can help your programs. Okay. And again, we talked about, we got a short amount of time with our kids, especially if we're a middle school coach. We got 2 years with our kids. And a lot of times we go to clinics and people talk about how to train the kids, and they talking about Usain Bolt. Okay, I don't have Usain Bolt. I got 80 little kids trying to figure out what they want to do. So what I try to do is kind of present something and a program that can really help you within the situation that you really have to deal with. And through these things, the first thing I look at is safety. So the things that I'm going to show you, they all are safe things to do that you can do them with young kids and you can do them with world-class athletes. And you just kind of progress it to where their ability is, but it's the same kind of result as what you're looking for. And again, what we're trying to do is get these kids, if we 7th and 8th graders, we're trying to help them in 2 years to just get their bodies strong and get them coordinated with fundamental movement before they go to the high school. Every once in a while, you get that exceptional athlete. But you got to also know how to progress that exceptional athlete at the same time. And I feel a lot of the things that I'm going to show you and share with you today will present them things for you. In the program that I've developed and what we use and what I really believe in is simple things that you can have in your situation, especially like the track coaches. Sometimes you're on a track. So how do I present these things to these kids on the track? And when the football team is using a weight room and I can't really get all my kids in the weight room, we'll bring the weight room out to the track. And it's simple things you can do with kettlebells, with medicine balls, and then also with the parachutes and sleds, where you push or pull the sleds. And that also works for every single sport, because what our first thought is speed and power and being more explosive with our athletes. And these things really help you develop that. And again, we'll go over all these things throughout these slides, but the core is so important. And so some of the things that we should be looking at our kids when they're young is just the fundamental movements. And the reason sometimes kids can't do things is because their core is really weak. So we got to spend some time and develop that. And when we're talking about core, we're not just talking about the abs. We're talking about the hips and their lower back. All that's part of your core. So we have to spend that time developing that, and that's going to help that kid more in the 7th and 8th grade than it is for me trying to squat 300 pounds. Right? That core is most important, and the hips, the ability and flexibility of the hips. Okay? And again, what we do in the programs, with every kid that I get, every kid that comes to me, I got a lot of kids that in a private program that I have, and they want me to train their kids, and I'm talking no matter what sport they're in, I introduce bands. Bands are so important because it's the hips that's the most important thing as an athlete. Develop the strength and power to generate the force if I'm jumping, if I'm running. That's where it comes from, is the flexibility of the hips. And a lot of times you'll see, especially track runners, when We tell them to lift their knees, lift their knees. The reason they can't do it is because their hips are weak. And so we're spending talking about lift their knees. The knee is not the focus. The focus should be in the hip. But also when you're dealing with different sports, especially with female athletes, when you're talking about soccer, basketball, volleyball, anything with changing direction, their hips are so important. And there's studies out there, we all have seen them, where we have a high injury rate with female athletes in them sports. And it comes from their hip. That's what they can't, where it's weak. And so when they're jumping and trying to change direction, the problem is not in their quad muscles, it's their hip, why their knee is going in. So when you see kids and they're jumping and landing and his knee's going like this, and we're talking about strengthening the quad, it's not the quad, it's the hip flexor. It's the hip is what you have to strengthen. So with the bands, we do a lot of different things that help turn the glute muscles on. So when we turn our glute muscles on, now that power is back here instead of going here. So when I land. So again, like when you tell kids to squat, some kids, as soon as you tell a kid to squat, they go like this. They go forward and they bend. That's incorrect. We got to sit back, so we got to teach them to push our hips back. That's how you squat properly. My knees don't move. If you kind of watch my knees, if you can see it, the knee never moves. My hips go back like I'm sitting in a chair. Okay, how do I teach that to 60 kids at one time? We sit on the bleachers. You tell them to sit down and you tell them to stand up. And then sit back down, and they'll do it correctly. Just real quick, I'll demonstrate with a chair. So when we first tell a kid to squat, they push their knees forward to squat down. They go like this. But if I tell them to sit in a chair, they're sitting, and I tell them to get up. They do it properly. Sit back down. I push my hips down when I think I'm finna sit in a chair. I push my hips back. But if I tell them to squat, they push their knees forward. So you can teach all of them the same way, the proper movement in some simple movement. So again, when we get into the bands, we do clams is the first thing, and what we're doing is turning on their glute muscles. And when you're doing the clam, you'll see we got a shot from the front and back. The athlete is flat. The object of what they're doing is they keep their feet together and they push their knees apart. And if the kid is feeling it in the front, in the hip flexors, it's wrong. We got to make sure they're feeling it on the side and in your glute muscle. And this is for every single sport that I teach. I've been in NBA for 20 years, and the guys can jump over the rim and their glute muscles are not even turned on. Most athletes in the United States are quad dominant because of how we develop them over the years. So when they landing and changing direction and stopping, they're using their quad muscles, and they're not supposed to. They're supposed to be using their glute muscle. So these bands, and we took athletes out to California, USC. The guy had did a study for 15 years, where we got the program from, and basically he teach you how to turn your glute muscles on. Okay, the next thing what we do is a flute. And again, the athletes land flat, and they bring their leg up as high as they can. And they're trying to keep everything straight. And the key with this movement, you got to make sure their shoulder, their hip, and their knee and their foot is all in a straight line. And it hit the muscles that we're trying to turn on. And when we do this, we start off with we come up and hold it for 30 seconds. And then over time, we hold it up to a minute. We hold it up to a minute, and the muscles get turned on. And all of a sudden, you see your athletes start bouncing around and doing things that they was having trouble with before because the correct muscles are being used now. Okay. What we do is a fire hydrant. And again, the athlete is in this position here, and the foot is towards the ceiling. And you can see the glute muscle is turned on. We're forcing that muscle to work. So now when you start moving and stopping, accelerating, decelerating, changing direction, we're using the glute muscles more than we're using the quad muscle, and you're going to be more explosive and faster. Okay? Then right from there, we go to a squat. And again, we build up where we hold all this for at least a minute. And even the squats, I hold up to 5 minutes sometimes. If I have a kid that's been with me a while, I challenge them where they can get in this position. Especially we know as an athlete, you have to be in this position, and you got to be able to hold that position with no trouble. Because I did 20 years with basketball, and I always tell the guys, and even the pro guys, you got to hold a guy for like 3 or 4 seconds. 3 or 4 seconds. He's going to pass it, he's going to shoot, or he's going to turn it over. It's going to be 3 or 4 seconds, because if he's holding it longer than that, the coach is yelling at him to move the ball. So, but if I can sit in this position for a minute or 5 minutes, defense is easy. Especially your team defense becomes a lot stronger and a lot better. Okay? Then I also do a lot of things with the hip isos, where stability, where they just stand and balance on one. You get kids that we try to get them to do athletic movements, and they can't even stand like this. They can't stand there and do it because their legs are not strong enough, their core is not strong enough. So I teach all that, and what she's doing right here is what we're stimulating and turning the hip muscles on, and basically what she's doing is different movements where she stands there and moves the band forward, and she goes sideways, and then she goes backward. And again, we start with like 20. And we work out, normally we do about 25 of them each way. And this is part of our warm-up with every single athlete, every team that I work with, we do this. It takes 5 minutes. Once you introduce it, it's 5 minutes of your warm-up, but it does a lot more for your warm-up than everything else that you probably would do. Okay? And again, this is a side view of the same shots. And then again, we're talking about hip mobility. We gotta be flexible in our hips. And again, what these athletes are doing, they're just showing you different movements of hurdles. And again, if you're track athletes, you can do it with the hurdles. But again, basketball guys that I had, we do this. We bought hurdles, the yellow ones that collapse down and you can move them real fast. And we use them as part of our warm-up with basketball. And again, it's the flexibility of the hips. You have to be flexible. That's going to generate the power. All the strength work that you do, we're going to be able to generate that and move a lot faster and be more explosive. Okay, again, then we go into bridges, right? And again, bridges is more for our low back and our hamstrings, but it's also turning that glute muscle on. And again, this is part of our warm-up before we even start moving. These exercises will take you 5 minutes. Will take you 5 minutes to get through. And then here it is a little more advanced, and this is more of a track, but anybody that's talking about trying to run fast, this is a very important exercise. And basically what she's doing is just iso holds with the hip on the two, on the far, on your far left, my right. She's just iso and holding, but she's got to hold that band, and the band puts more resistance, but it's making the hip flexors stronger. Therefore, they're going to be more explosive and more powerful. She'll hold that for a minute. Again, we'll start with like 20, 30 seconds, and we'll build over the next few weeks where they're doing it for a minute. And then here what she's doing is like real rapid fires where the band is across her knee and she's stimulating and she's moving as fast as she can, driving that knee force, and it's really your quad muscle up. Because a lot of times we tell our kids lift your knees, it's really your quad that you got to fire up. It's the quad what you should be focused on, not the knees. Because a lot of times we tell kids to lift their knees, they look like they're in a marching band. They start getting here because their core is not strong where they can stay here, so they lean back and they're not even getting what you really want. All right, but they're thinking they're lifting their knees. Okay, again, now we get into speed drills. And speed drills to me is very important for every sport you play if it has any running in it. Because what it does is teach you the running mechanisms, break down everything that you do, and then we put it back together. A lot of times you go to track meets or you see kids warming up and they're talking to each other, they're playing around. This is the most important thing they're supposed to be doing. And they got to be focused. When I teach speed drills, I teach them for 10 yards. 10 yards, because I want you to do it correctly. And then through muscle memory, it becomes habit, and it becomes part of who you are, and you'll move more efficient, and therefore, right alone, you're going to move faster. And that's like when I was at the University of Wisconsin, the first thing I did with football, and again, you got to remember, this is like 20, 25 years ago when I did this. When nobody was doing, like everybody does year-round training and things of that sort, but what we did, we just straightened everybody up. Because football guys wasn't used to running correctly, running straight. They had stuff going all over the place. So we straightened them up, and the whole defense became so much faster. But it makes a huge difference for football. If you got 11 guys moving a little bit faster, it's a different game. Because football, a lot of times you just miss the guy, but now you're getting the guy. Now your team is coming to help you. Now you're making that tackle. And so in any other sport, if you got everybody in your sport, on volleyball or soccer, everybody's starting to move a little bit faster, it changes who you are. It changes your team identity, who it is. Okay, again, this is the first drill we do, and again, we'll demonstrate so many things. There's going to be videos on here. The first drill is marching, and it's just teaching you kids, because sprinting really is pushing down. A lot of people think we reach and we pull forward to get foot faster. No, you don't. Your foot come here, and people get here, they reach. If I land right here, I can't move to my center of gravity gets over this foot. So we got to teach our kids to push down. So basically what happens is you come here and you push down. That's how you explode off the track. That's how you start running fast. So I don't care what sport you play. If you're trying to be faster, you have to do these type of drills. Okay? Again, and then we also do it where it's fast. It'll be a short hold march, and then we do it where it's fast. And again, it's going to be a video to demonstrate all these movements. And so some of the athletes, they'll start demonstrating the drill. And what he's doing is the march with a hold, and it's just kind of balancing the strength and the core. All that plays into that. But when he comes down, he pushes right back down on the surface or whatever he's running on. Okay, and then the next drill is called ankling, and we're teaching the kids how to really move their feet fast, and especially like for track runners, the ankling is important because it's the part of your block start. Your block on your first movement out of the hole, you don't have a full rotation. It's under, so you don't really clear. You just kind of clear your ankle to get the foot out. A lot of kids, when they first start, they pick the foot up, and that's the wrong thing to do because the other kids have already moved and you haven't went anywhere. So this drill is teaching the ankling to keep the foot low. Okay, next slide. And again, he's just stepping over the ankle is all he's really doing. And it's, again, as you get used to these and they get better, it gets faster and faster. And it's just in slow-mo, the same drill. And again, you just try to be efficient with your arms, everything straight. But what he's teaching is, what he's doing is just stepping real quick right over his ankle. Okay. Again, stretching is a big part of it. When again, these is kind of the form, the drills that I go through is the stretching, is just really stretching the hip flexors and as they move, getting ready before they even start any activity. And you're trying to get low as you can and stretch and flexibility in the hips because it's really important for movement when especially change of direction drills. Karaoke is the next drill that we show. And again, it's just a high front knee lift in the front, and it's quick and it's aggressive. It's kind of slow molded, but you see they really lifting in the front, and it's quick change and being aggressive with the driver up front, and it's just working the hips and getting them ready to do things. One of the next drills is called A-step. A-step is more of a rhythm drill, but it's basically what your legs do when you run, and especially when you run fast. But the thing you'll see about the A-step is the drive of their hip, their quad muscle is up and it's high. And it's a quick, rapid, straight push down. If you watch their feet, it's pushing straight back down to the surface or the track. And it's up and it's straight down. It's not forward, it's straight down. Because again, when we do some of the things I'm going to show you at the back end of these slides is the wicket drill, and it teaches the front end mechanics, and it's really important. Highly recommended you put in your program. This is the B step. Again, it'll show it's the A step first, and then it's the B step, but this is the rotation of what your leg does when you run. And again, this is one of the athletes showing, and you can see he has a great knee lift. He's very flexible in his hips, but he's also was a world-class hurdler, and that's why he looks real explosive. And the guy sitting in the back of the room, Jensen Hyde, he's our track specialist. So if you guys ever need any help with any, if you call us, you probably end up talking or dealing with him. The next drill is just high knees. Again, you'll see where it's really focusing on the quad, firing the quad up. And then you have a butt kicks here, and again, the biggest thing with butt kicks that we don't have a high back kick. What we do is we tuck it right up under, and that's going to alleviate the high back kick. But again, when you do the wicket drills, and again, we're going to show you what they are. Whatever sport you have, I highly recommend you do it because it teaches them automatically they have to do it. They can't go through the cones or the wickets without doing it correctly. So then it becomes habit, muscle memory, and they'll run faster and more efficient. Again, he's just showing the butt kicks, but you see he's coming straight up instead of going behind him. When we was taught, before we did butt kicks back here, but it's up under is what you're trying to do because you got the front end mechanics to try to run fast, to strike the ground faster and more efficient. Okay, then one of the other drills we do is called power hip. And some people call it soldiers or whatever. It's very important that you incorporate this also because this is, again, developing the strength in your hips to be able to be more explosive moving forward. And then again, they just kind of bounding, but it's a straight leg and it's really coming from the hip flexor is what it's doing. And then we do it like what we call power hip high, and that's one of the only drills, one of the few, it's 2 drills that I go past 10 yards. This one we go out to like 30, 40 yards, but it's really being more explosive and really separating and getting big and trying to create distance and space. And the drill that I incorporate and what I teach is I call low walks. They lunges, but I make you walk low, and the stride, you see how long the stride is. that he's really driving force, but this is a drive phase of when you're coming out of the blocks. So they're there where he's really getting a long stride, tucked under, and it's really developing the quad, your hamstrings, and your glute muscles. Again, that's your power. That's what we got to develop to run fast. Okay? And then we go to high knee running. This is the other thing that I go out for a long distance, because what I make you do is high knees, but it's running. You're really running with high knees, and now they got good mechanics, they good form, and I make them run 30 and 40 yards with just lifting. And that shows the kids that they have the hip strength to run fast. Because again, when we run 100 meters or 40 meters or whatever we run, when we run as fast as we can't run the whole 100 meters 100%. It doesn't happen. It's a drive phase, then it's really a acceleration phase or a hold phase, where you got to, so the kids is going to run real fast, especially at the inner races when they look like they took off and left them. No, they didn't. This kid decelerated faster than the other kid. That's why you get the big gap when kids get away from kids. They just decelerating because they can't hold what they're trying to build. And these other kids can do that. Okay? And again, it's just high knee running. You see he's high kneeing, but he's really running when he's doing it. And that's just a slow motion version of that. Okay? Again, and then when we're talking about developing strength and power, being explosive, they have to do bounds. Again, these are examples of bounding, but you can see the aggressiveness of it and how big she is. And that's how you're going to get distance, but you also have to be strong and be able to sustain it, so when you hit the ground and strike, that things are not collapsing. So we got to get everything stronger. And that's, like I said, when we develop and working with the kids, that's the first focus is here of getting the core stronger. That's what's going to make the kids more explosive, because they can be strong with their upper body or lower body, but if their core is weak, they can't generate any of that on the field or the turf or the track or whatever sport they're doing, the court, etc. And again, we're just being explosive, quick off the ground, light off the ground, and being explosive. And then we talk about explosive hops. Again, you can see the load, what they're doing on the pictures. That's how you load yourself to jump. Some kids kind of half do it, but if they really want to get better at it, they got to really be aggressive. It's explosive and it's aggressive. And that's how they'll develop these muscles that they need to be able to perform in whatever sport they're participating in. You can see how aggressive, how he gets up, he swings his arms, everything's explosive. And again, when you first teach them, especially the middle school coaches, don't try to worry about going out 30, 40 yards. Let's try to do it correctly for 10 yards. And I'm trying to help you get ready for 8th grade. Then 8th grade, them kids will be a little bit stronger. But again, you're going to get that special kid that they can handle what the 8th graders are doing. But our job, we got 2 years with them. Then they go into high school for 4 years. And then that coach job, he or she got 4 years to help develop that kid. Some kids going to be special, and they're going to be freshmen, and they're going to be faster than the other seniors. But we're not going to get that kid every year. If we got a program, we got to try to help develop our program to continue to move and continue to be successful and be better. Okay? Again, everybody, especially every other sport other than track and field, I'm sure you've seen the foot ladder. And these are just a couple clips. There's 50 drills we can do different with the foot ladder. But again, to me, the foot ladder replaced the jump rope. The jump rope is what we need. That's all we need. And even if you don't have a rope, all you need is a line. It's just quick foot movements, and the more you do it and incorporate it, they're going to get better balance, better coordination, and they're going to be more efficient when they move. But again, if you don't have a foot ladder, you don't have, but I like jump ropes. I put people on jump ropes because I think it's a lost art. When I was young, I remember when I first started and being real successful in track and field, there were studies out when I was at the University of Wisconsin that female athletes actually reacted quicker to the gun and to the first movement of the initial gun sound. But because the guys were stronger, by the time they did a foot strike, they would move in front of them because of the strength that the guys had. But I look back, girls jumped double dutch. They jumped rope when they were little. So their reaction and movements were faster. But now nobody does that. They playing videos and whatever else, the iPhone and whatever else phone you got. So they don't develop them muscles and that quick coordination and strength, and et cetera. And again, like my program, the reason I use kettlebells is because, again, I deal with a lot of track athletes. I deal with basketball guys, and I dealt with football in college. And again, if we were in a weight room, this is not saying, hey, don't get with all your weight room. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you don't have access to a weight room, you can get some kettlebells, and it can really help develop your program. And again, what we demonstrate here in these next videos is the kettlebell swings, squats, and cleans. Okay, again, and then if you don't have kettlebells, you can use med balls, especially if you're dealing with middle school kids and especially the female athletes. Just use medicine balls. It's the same thing, because basically what they're doing is a goblet squat. But the goblet squat teaches you to squat the correct way, right? So that's why it's so, I think it's a great exercise, because it teaches them a safe and simple way to teach them how to squat properly. And again, they're using the kettlebells, and the young lady is using the med ball, and all you do is focus is getting the elbows inside the knees. So again, but it gives them the perfect position with squats. So when you do get to a point and you load them with the squat, they're doing it correctly. So if we're in the middle school, it's going to help our high school coaches or teaching the middle school kids just how to do it correctly. Don't matter how much weight they're doing, that they do it correctly. So when they go to the next levels, they already have the technique down, and then when you start to load them, when they can handle that, they're ready to handle that load. Okay? Then the kettlebell swings. And the biggest thing with kettlebell swings and cleans and anything with Olympic lifts that we do is the hinge of your hip. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I see guys all the time, oh, they're in there cleaning, they're jerking it, and it's all arms. They're all doing it wrong. So I use kettlebells because you have to do it right, because it's all about the hips. And again, what you'll see in the next slide is the push and the hinge, especially with the young man on the left. He pushes his hip forward. That's the movement. The movement is here to here, here to here. So if I'm cleaning here, it's the same thing. I see guys doing this all the time. It's all arms. This is all you need. It's the hinge of the hip. That's how you're going to get more explosive. That's what you do when you're doing any athletic movement. It's the hinge of your hip. When I shoot a jump shot, same thing. When I go run the jump, trying to get a rebound, it's the hinge of my hip, how quick I can fire that thing. How quick I can fire, bam, bam. And it's a second jump. So that's what's more important. The kettlebells teaches you that in a simple and safe way. And she's doing a little bit more advanced, where she'll do more a single arm. And again, as they get stronger, you just get a heavier kettlebell. But the biggest thing is, especially when they're young, or like middle school and early high school, that they're doing the movements correct, but it's the hinge of the hip is what's important. And then they're going to show you some kettlebell cleans. Them are just different stages, and the key with the kettlebell clean is that you point your thumb inside. It's just like you zipping your jacket. So the closer you keep the kettlebell towards your body, you're doing it correctly. If you get the kettlebell away from your body and it flips and pops you, that means you're too open, you're too far away. You just got to keep it tight, and it'll sit right on your forearm. And they just demonstrate one from the front, one from the back. And it's just like you zipping your jacket. You reload, and then you fire up. But I think these are safe things, especially you can bring to your area, and you can have the kids doing that if you don't have time, you don't have that much time in a day to work out in the volleyball on the court, and then I got to go in the weight room. You just don't have that much time. But I think you can incorporate some of these movements on a daily basis, different activities to help with them type of activities that you would need for the development of your kids. Okay, med balls. I think med balls is so important because it teaches you how to explode. It teaches you rapid movement with a resistance. So I incorporate med balls in my program. Every team that I ever train and every athlete that I train, we do med ball training because it's rapid acceleration type movements. Okay, the first thing is underhand front, and as you see, he just come underhand and you explode the ball forward and you push your hips forward and you jump out. My track kids, we do it, but all the other kids, we do it, and we run right after we throw it out. So it teaches them to generate that force and power and then move right into a movement to be explosive and fast. See how fast that was? No, the video was real fast. But again, she's just really being explosive and jumping forward with the med ball. Then we also do a chest pass, and then we also do overhead backwards. And the key, what you will really look at is look how the extension he has through his hips to throw the med ball backwards, because a lot of kids will do it and they just use their upper body strength to throw it. But you really want to just from your legs is what you're doing. You're just really pushing that ball from your legs, and the key is the extension that you'll get, and that's how you see the explosive power that he has. Okay, and then this is incorporated a lot of with my track kids, especially like sprinters with their block start. They do a single leg and they alternate, and what they do is stand on one leg and they alternate the ball underhand, but then they extend to the other leg. It's just like you simulating, you pushing off a block. It's the same thing. Okay. And then we talk about resistance running and resistance movements, and you can incorporate it in every sport. It helps build strength and stability, which is going to help them become faster and more explosive. So we do it with parachutes, we do it with sled pushes and sled pulls. And I think it's something that you can really develop, and I do a lot, and I make my kids with the parachutes, especially my track kids when I train them. We run 300 yards, we run 150s, we do all that with the parachute. Because, and again, even if you run a 150, it's like you simulating you ran 300, because it's a lot harder. Because the parachute is putting that resistance on you. Because especially sprinters, I was a sprinter. I didn't like running 400s. I didn't like running 500s. I didn't have parachutes when I was little, but I wish I would have, because over time I figured, and when I do it with the kids, it's fun, it's different. It's like they work harder because they're doing something different they normally don't do. That's why I incorporate the kettlebells, the med balls, the foot ladder, all that type of training. Is hard work, but it's fun. On Fridays, we did obstacle courses, but it was all the movements that we trained all week when we had the conditioning phase of our program. And then on Fridays was obstacle course, so we'd split the teams in there, compete against each other, like the old superstar obstacle course. We did that every Friday, and they loved it. And these are college kids that don't want to do it, but they end up really loving it because it was fun. And they had to jump hurdles, they jump high jump, they did all that stuff. But it was just kind of fun for them on Fridays. They look forward to it. Again, he's just running with a parachute, but you see they lift, they drive, they knee, they being aggressive with it, but it gives them some resistance training. Again, them are just shots from a short distance. And even with the sled pulls, you can do it two different ways. You can do it for speed, and you can also do it for strength, where you can really load it and you really teach them how to push and drive their foot down towards the track or the turf or whatever they're on, and it's just developing the power. And again, these are sleds with the pulls. You can't see the weight on the back of them, but you can see that the reason I like this example is because of the two athletes. This is a 12-year-old girl, and this is he's a senior in high school. He's a football player. But you see the different form and technique. The guy's bent over, ready, like he's, thinking it's power, but she actually is generating more power because she's more efficient. And she's like 80 pounds. And this kid is, probably 165 or so, but he's a football guy, but he's hunched over. But he had just, he just started with the training that we were doing. He was probably about 2 to 3 weeks in when we introduced this. But again, you see the track athlete. She's a little she's a track athlete, but you can see the technique, the form, everything's more efficient. She happens to be my daughter too, and she's kind of good. So it's free. Just we don't have to pay her for her modeling. But she's just really efficient with her movement. And I incorporate some of that is that she's my daughter. But the other part, she was a gymnast. And I think if you get gymnasts in your program, they're going to be great. Especially on the female side, they're going to be great athletes. They core, first, I think the biggest thing, because when they come to you, their core is already strong. So when you teach them and show them things, they can do it right away. And that, to me, has a lot to do with their core is strong. But I think it really helps. Again, then we do resistance with cords. And the cords I did with basketball, football players, where it's different movements. And we got the cords that the band slides around. So you can be forward, and you can turn and go lateral, and the band slides, so you can get both resistance on whatever that movement you want. So all the athletic movements and agility drills that you do with other sports, you can use the bands, and that'll help generate that strength and the resistance that you're looking for. And then there's also some of the things that's not really on the video, but over the years, the thing that I train a lot of kids is called contrast training, where they go resistance, assistance, and free movement. And over time, that really generates your ability to really run fast. And the resistance when you holding them back, the resistance when you pull them. And basically when you pull them with the bungee cords, because it's like running downhill, but you don't have to worry about your balance. Because if I told you to run downhill, you're going to kind of run with your arms out because of your balance. But it's on flat surface and you pull them, they're going to run normal, especially after you teach them the correct running form. And then you do free movement. And through muscle memory, just like when we lift weights, your body starts to fire at that same rate if you had the resistance or the assistance movement, and now you're going to be running faster. And that's what I do with kids later into the season when we're really trying to peak. And but that's what track kids like. But I train different because I let and some people are starting to get the concept, but if you're trying to run for speed, you got to train speed all the time. A lot of times people, they load them up all year, and then 3 weeks before the state meet, they try to get them to run fast. That doesn't work. You got to train speed all the time. So if I'm a football player, basketball player, whatever it is, I do fast stuff all the time because that's what I do when I play. That's what I do when I play. I do fast stuff. All right? Okay, this is the wicket runs that I was talking about. But you see they got the front end mechanic. You see they lift, and you see there's no back kick. Because you just went over this hurdle, you don't have time to let your legs swing back. It comes right up under, and you got to go over the next wicket. And you can see what they're doing. There's no real back kick. They're pushing off. And this is what I'm talking about. I don't care what sports you coach. I really believe this will help you tremendously because it teaches them to run properly. And it also teaches you to push down on the track, on the turf, on the court, whatever you're running on, and it teaches you to get that foot back up faster. So it's a great drill that I highly recommend to every sport that you coach. Okay, now we get into agility. Now we're talking about movement, especially for you football, basketball, soccer, volleyball coaches. It's about movement. It's about movement with being more efficient. And the drills that I'm going to show you again, I was fortunate enough to be in the NBA for over 20 years, and some of the NBA drills that they do at the combine, I helped come up with the drills. Again, I was in the NBA for 20 years. Football, the drills we're going to show you is the same drills that they do at the football combine. And what I highly recommend that you just repeat the movement. And as they get better, you challenge them more. You can move it out, you can make it smaller, you can make it bigger, and you just challenge them more to be able to chop their feet, to move quicker, and all them things is going to really help them. And then you get to a point, you load them. You can put weight vests on them, you can put the bands on them, and again, it's kind of hard because you have so many kids, but a lot of times the kids help the kids. So instead of you trying to hold everybody, they hold each other. So they work in pairs, and that's how you can develop a lot of these movements. Again, the 5-10 drill, pro agility 5-10-5 drill, everybody, probably football does it, but I think every other sport can do it because it's going to help your kids. Because it's the ability to accelerate, decelerate, and change direction. Them are your great athletes. That's what they have the ability to do. So and again, these drills are in a small confinement, but we're just trying to show you the movement of the drill. And again, we'll show you a little bit when we go out on the Learn by Doing. Okay? And just changing direction. The next drill is the 3-cone drill. And again, you go up and back, and then you go around the cone, and then you go around the second cone that you went to. Can you run that again? Because it's kind of choppy for some reason. It's still there. But again, it's just up and back. Then you go around the cone, and you go inside that cone and around it. That's the same drill that you use at the pro football NFL combine. They've been using it for 50 years. It's the same drill. But again, it's to show them be able to change, decelerate, and change direction. And again, you'll see like some of these drills they're doing they're track kids doing it, so they don't have you see they got a longer stride. But when you're dealing with other sports, the stride is a little bit quicker and shorter because it's more confinement. It's like football guys, when they run, most of their whole game is really 5 to 10 yards. It's 5 to 10 yards at a time. You very seldom break out and run 80 yards. So the stride is not as important. It's the quickness of the movements is what's important. Stand low, stand efficient, being able to change directions. Okay? Again, this is agility drill is just sliding back and forth. But again, we can put resistance on that. We can hold a band and have the kids slide back and forth. As they get real good, that's how you challenge them to get even better. Shuttle run. Okay? Again, it's just up and back on the shuttle run, where the kid is just running to the cone, change direction, go back, change direction, and sprint out. Right? We can make that cone, we can make them longer. We can make them in different angles. You can do just your imagination as a coach will help change and do all that. The next drill is a star drill. Okay?
Windy.
Oh, they seeing our ghosts? No, it was really windy the day we ended up shooting. It was like 35 degrees, raining and windy. But we needed the video, so. But again, she's just doing a star drill. This is the box drill. Box drill they do at the NBA Combine. accelerate, decelerate, and change direction. They test you. A kid that can't do, even a good player in college that can't do good on this test, they already know you can't play defense. You can't play. If you can't score good on this test, you can't do it. So that's why you see a lot of kids that might be really good in college, and you're like, man, why can't they even make pro? They didn't get a tryout. It's stuff like this that they couldn't do well. But if we start teaching our kids at a young age over and over and over again, they're going to be more efficient and better at that. Unless you can really shoot like Dirk Nowitzki, then it doesn't matter. And she's just doing an example of a W drill where she slide, accelerate, and then slide again and accelerate. Just change the direction. Again, with football and basketball kids, soccer kids, volleyball, they're going to be doing this a lot faster. Again, we just kind of demonstrating what the drill is and how the movements, what you're looking at, and to be able to break down, change direction, and being more efficient in your movements. But I think if you train this and just put it in part of your program, they're going to become better and better, and it's going to really help your team with your team speed and your quickness, whatever sport you're coaching. Again, we're talking about being explosive, plyometric drills, box jumps. We do a lot of different stuff with that because that's how you help them become more explosive and in their development to be able to generate the explosive power that they need. Okay, that's the one that's flipped. You can't turn it? Sorry. But again, as he tried to get that back, oh, here he is. Here we go. Nope. Oh. Okay, what they're doing is single leg box jumps. And again, that's the 12-year-old doing it. So we know these high school kids can do a single leg, right? And again, one was left leg, one was right. But she's a 4-foot long jumper. She never jumped. She jumped one time last week and jumped 15.4. She was a former gymnast. That's what I'm saying. When you get them type of kids, I think they're going to be kind of special for you. I think she's doing a double leg box jumps on these. But it teaches them to get off the floor and get off the box fast is what we're looking for. And just being explosive. But then we also jump down the box because down the box teaches your brain, especially when you're sprinting, because you're going to strike the ground even faster from that sprint movement. So that's why we go down the box. A lot of people don't do that, but with my track kids, we do it all the time when we're doing this type of training. And you come off the last box, you run off of it. And they get lower. It's like depth jumps. Oh, I'm sorry, you got it back right. Okay, the other thing we talked about is the core, the strength and stability. We do planks. Planks are very important. I've done them for 6 minutes. I've done them for 5 minutes. I did it for a minute, but what we do now, we do them for 1 minute, and then we go right to plank twists. I mean, it's just the core and the stability of the plank. When I was at the Dallas Mavericks, Dirk loved them. So we had to do it every single day for 6 minutes. That was our warm-up. Our first part of our warm-up, everybody on the team had to plank. Even when we didn't want to do it, Dirk, we like, no, we got to do it. So we had to do it. He loved them. But it really helped you develop that strength in your core and stability that's going to help you in all your movements that you have. We do a lot of standing trunk rotations, med ball with the Russian twist, flutter clicks for your low abs. Again, we do a lot of single leg RDLs. We do it with the med ball. We do it with the kettlebells. And again, if I have a large group, we just use their body weight. Especially the young kids, when I got them in when they're young, I just use their body weight to teach them that movement and stability and balance that they need that's going to help them run fast. Because even if we run or jump in basketball, especially, we got to remember we're jumping off one leg. But if you watch a kid do that exercise, they can't even balance themselves. So eventually something bad might happen. So we got to help them develop that strength. And them are the things that I think is important. And instead of a lot of times, no, and we all guilty of it, because I remember when I first started, I thought you had to get strong. You got to be able to squat the whole building. And when I got to the NBA, none of them guys could do any of that. I mean, it was the best athletes on the planet, and they couldn't do it. It's like when we talk about like the band stuff, just being able to balance and hold like this. They can't do it. So I'm like, how are you jumping over the rim? And they can't do simple things, because their glute muscles wasn't working. But they was quad dominant, and they just was habit. That's how they did it. But then when you straighten them up and got the glutes firing, now they're jumping even higher. You know, so these are things I think is really important that we put into their programs that really help them. And it's just a group of kids that's doing different core exercises. They doing the Supermans, they doing bridges, and they doing hip movements, like opening their hips up with the athlete right here, just doing different exercises. And again, all this stuff takes a few minutes to put into your program, and it really helps them in their development. And again, I think we have to remember, we got them for a short time. We're not trying to set the world record in 2 years, because it's not going to happen. They're in the 7th grade, right? We're trying to get them ready for your high school team. Then the high school, for the gifted athletes, we're trying to get them ready for college. And so, I mean, we developed a program, but I think all these little things really help them get better in their development. And again, it's different exercises. She's doing a Russian twist. She came out of the plank where she held it for a minute, and now she's doing the plank turns. And then they're just really stretching it with their flexibility and their hip muscles. This is the video about the wickets. And if you just kind of listen to the voice on it, they talk about how important they are and what they do.
First encounter is thanks to Coach Vince Anderson, who's currently at Texas A&M. When he uses 6-inch banana hurdles to create an obstacle course.
But you can really see the front side mechanics, and you see how explosive they are striking the ground. And it's not a high back kick. That leg comes right up under. It forces you to do it correctly.
For nice vertical bounce and tall posture. The drill is designed to impart good front side mechanics, improve stride frequency, as well as increasing force production and direction of striking. It helps solve such common problems as overstriding and back kick as well. Once an athlete masters the spacing, we simply increase the total spacing by an inch or so.
And you can see how far out they take it. You can take it out real far and teach them to do it correctly for a long time.
Flats, spikes, and the grass with varying run-ins and run-offs, flip over or turned up. The use is really only limited by the coach's imagination.
And what you're also looking for when they come out of the wicket, you want them to continue to hold the lift, what they're developing in the wickets. And the reason you take them out a long time, it teaches a kid that you can do it for 30 and 40 and 50 yards. Because when you do it for 10, they think that, oh, I'm done now. As soon as they come out of it, they drop. But then you just ease it out as you work with them, and they get stronger. And they do it because, and it's fun, it's different. Instead of me just yelling at them, talking about lift, 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 or whatever your cue is to them, that helps them do it, and they do it correctly, and it's fun. All right? Okay, again, first of all, I'd like to thank all you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to come out and listen to our program. We really think we can help you guys in many of the needs that you might have in your program, the equipment that you might need, and that will help you spend more time instead of ordering equipment that you can spend time in developing your kids.